So we want to figure out what method violates the majority criterion. In other words, of all the voting methods that we've studied so far, which one is not fair in relation to the majority criteria? So let's look back at a cartoon that we saw earlier. Remember, we had candidate A here. And candidate A had won the majority of the first place votes, so they thought they deserved to win the election. But there was this mystery voting method that said, nope, you're not the winner, candidate A. And of course, candidate A felt like that was not fair. So we want to figure out who is this mystery voting method that violated the majority candidate here. So let's begin by looking at an example of an election where we have 4 candidates. We'll just call them A, B, C, and D. And they're the finalists for a job of principal at a new school in Lexington. And there are 14 school board members that vote on these finalists, and they use preference ballots. And the election results are shown below in this preference schedule. So the first thing we want to see is there a majority candidate? Well, we know that there is a total of 14 voters because there are 14 school board members, and we know we need more than half of 14 to be a majority, so more than 7. So in other words, to have a majority candidate, we need 8 or more first place votes. So let's look and see if any candidate has the majority. And if we look at A here, they have 6 first place votes here and 2 first place votes here, and 6 plus 2 makes 8, so that's certainly a majority. So there is a majority candidate, and it ends up that A is the majority candidate. So let's suppose that we decide the winner of this election using the border count method. So recall that for the border count method, the lowest choice gets 1 point, and the next choice up 2 points, and the next choice 3, and then the highest points for this one would be 4. So let's look at how many border count points A would get. Well, 4 times 6 is 24. And then 4 times 1, and then 2 times 1, and then 2 times 4, which is 8. So A would get a total of 38 points. And then let's look at B. Well, B would get 18 plus 16 plus 8 plus 6 for a total of 48. And C would get 2 times 6, 12, plus 12, plus 4, plus 2 for a total of 30. And then finally, D would earn 6 plus 8 plus 6 plus 4 for a total of 24. And we can see here then that the candidate that got the most border count votes is B. So B is the border count winner. So clearly what we have here is a violation of the majority criteria, because even though A won the majority of the first place votes, B won this election. Let's look at a few other examples. How about this election? There's clearly a majority candidate for this election. There's 50 total votes, and half of 50 is 25. And certainly having 26 first place votes would make you more than half. So in this election, B is the majority candidate. Or sometimes they say majority winner. But let's suppose we decide this election using the border count method. Let's see who would win. Well, I've already done the calculations here, and we see that if we calculate all the border count points, that C is the winner of this election by the border count method. But didn't we just say that A is the majority? B is the majority candidate? Sorry. So again, we have another violation of the majority criteria, because even though B was the majority candidate, C ends up being the winner of this election. So we've seen the border count method violate the majority criteria in two examples. So the question is, does the border count method always violate the majority criterion? Well, let's look at this election. This election has a total of 24 voters. Half of 24 is 12. So clearly A here is the majority candidate. Is the majority, we'll just say the majority C. So let's see who would win this election by the border count method. And I've already done the calculations. Here they are. And we see that A is the winner. Now, who was the majority candidate? Remember, it was A. A is the majority. And this time, by the border count method, A was the winner of the elections. So we say here that the border count method can violate the majority criteria. The border count method really is the mystery method that we were looking for. It's the method that will violate the majority criteria. So what we want to do is go on and see, do any of our other voting methods violate or satisfy the majority criteria? So when you complete the next couple of activities, you'll be able to determine if the plurality method or the Copeland pairwise method violates or satisfies the majority criteria.